Hello, very good evening. In previous class, we talked about PHP sessions and how we can use sessions to create or manage users' activities throughout our page using a simple head counter. In today's lecture, we will create a simple login system using sessions. However, we will not be using database at this moment because we haven't talked about it yet. We will be just using a sessions to create and save the user's data while he is able to browse with pages. My name is Dr. Zeeshan. If you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon so you receive the notifications of all these tutorials regularly. Let's begin. Now, the first thing is let's just create a very simple HTML page that allows us to store the user data. So for example, this is a standard practice. We tend to create a simple page, or we can use a template, but for now, I'm just working with the page. Okay. So Control S, save it, and if I come into my XAMPP folder within htdocs, let's create a new folder called login simple. I think that should do the trick. And then in this page, let me just name this as index.php. Okay, so I don't have to write the file name. Now within this, let me give heading 1, for example, simple login using sessions. Okay, \h1. Now once we come here, basically we need to give, for example, enter your enter your login information, and spelling mistake. Okay, here we go. Okay, let's put this inside your paragraph text. So once we are here, now let's just create a simple form that allows us to enter the user data. Within the form, we have something called input type can be initially text. This will be, for example, login ID, I guess. Okay, and then obviously you can use something called placeholder. This is something that somebody was asking me. Enter login ID. Okay, so the placeholder is like a temporary text that appears on your text field, like a hint, so that you know what you're supposed to do. Similarly, password. Okay, password, and then I would again use something called input, and this can be my password field. Okay, the name basically will be txt pa password, and in this case the name will be txt for example id. Okay, we created two simple text fields that will be allowed to use our basic username and password. After each text field, or after these two text fields, I can use something called br, so a new line appears, and then I can use again another input, and this would be submit. Okay, now submit basically means that whenever we click on this button, this form will be submitted. Where this form is to be submitted, that is to be decided. In this case, what we can do is we will just use for now something called action. Means that once I click on button, where this should go, I will just use a hash, and method can be, for example, post. Okay, hash means refer my own self page. Okay, we have this simple page created. So let's just view this page for a moment, and if I saved it in the correct location, let's come here, localhost / login, and what was the name? Simple. I forgot the name actually. Okay, if I come inside my Sublime, I think login simple, sorry. So I come back here, login simple is simple, press enter, and we get this login simple page. So enter your name, and basically this is what placeholder does. Some people have been asking that. Basically it's like a hint, so the text as soon as you start typing will just automatically disappear. Okay, so this is called placeholder. So login email and login password, and we are missing the button. Where's my button gone? So if I come back into the editor, okay, I misspelled it, I guess, input. I think we wrote the submit here, or did we undo something? submit, submit. What happened here? Did we change something? Yeah, I think something changed. Type is equals to submit, submit. Okay, for whatever reason, it got changed. So once I save it, come back, it refresh. So now we have a submit button. So as soon as I click, basically it comes back to my own page. Now idea is that I give a username and password, then click on submit. As soon as I submit, if the names and password are correct, it logs me into my system. So what we do is we come inside the HTML, or before HTML, let me just write PHP code, PHP very quickly, and I close this. Okay, so within our PHP now basically we need to do something called session start. Okay, what this now will mean that as soon as we visit this page, my session has been initiated. When the session is initiated, we use the if condition and we use a method called isSet, and then in this isSet we use $_post post bracket start bracket close and colon submit submit. Now this basically means that once I click on the submit button, it will evaluate is there any value in post submit. Okay, because we have given it a name here as well, so there will be some value, whatever in that case submit button sends. So we are just evaluating that did user click on the submit button. If they did, then what we need to do. If they didn't, then what we need to do. So, okay, so first what we do is check if the user has clicked on submit button. Okay, so this is check if the user has CLI clicked on submit button. So this is what the first if is doing. If the user has clicked on submit button, then what we do. Okay, now check the user ID and password. Okay, so now what do you do? If user has clicked on the submit button, now you check. But if they haven't clicked on submit button, there's nothing to do. So just come outside. So once the user has clicked on the submit button, now you need to do something. What is that? Again, we will use if condition. Within if condition, we will use something called $_post bracket start bracket close semicolon. So for example, I can use something called txt id. Okay, because this ID is same thing here, text ID. This ID, once I click on submit button, will be sent via post method. Okay, so it because we have used hash, so it will reload basically the same page. So I've checked that check this variable data if there is any value or not. So what value we want? For example, we can say is equals to hey, let's be my name with a capital Z. Okay, and we can use AND operator, and we can use $_post again bracket start bracket close single quotations, and then for example txt password. Okay, so this is the second text password here. So now what we did here, we checked the condition. This is the login system we are doing. So we checked from our form that the data that was entered in your form as an ID, is it equivalent to this or not? And the post method takes the password. Is this password equivalent to, for example, ACA, or let's just use 1 2 3 4. This is verifying the account, as simple as it is. Bracket start bracket close. Okay, now in future references we will be using this common database. Okay, we will read this user ID is equivalence to, and this string would actually be fetched from a database, and the database would be traversed to see whether the post ID is from a database or not. Okay, but currently, since we are not talking about database, we are just using a hard coded string. Not a good way, but like I said, it's just a simple login system that we are trying to create. Okay, in this case, a simple post method is used to validate if the string matches this. If the string is matched, means the user ID is same, and post text password 1 2 3. Okay, this is not a good way, just the test phase, just understanding how login using sections is basically working. Once we are here, now what you can do is, for example, you can use this $SESSION session variable. Okay, because the username and password are correct. Now we can use, for example, ID is equals to $_post bracket start bracket close semicolon txt ID. Okay, so now whatever ID user entered in their form will be set to the session variables, so that we do not need to worry about this ID again and again. Similarly, $_SC session, and for example, but I don't need to save the password now. Usually we don't save passwords in the session. If it's validated, for example, we can say user validation or authentication, AUTH authentication is equals to true. Okay, so TRUE. So we can leave this thing as true, that yes, user validation is true, or any other information that you want to save in this session if your login is true. So if login condition is true, means user is okay, and we can leave the information right there. Now what happens if this condition, if this thing is okay? So once after this, what we do is we call something called URL redirection. Now this is something we will talk more about in future classes, but let's just begin with it. This is something what happens that when you click on login, we click on the login ID, the data goes to the server. Once it activates and when it knows that yes, this user is correct, then server redirects you to a new page. It wants you to represent and go to a new page. So what we can do here is that if this is the condition, what we do is we use a function called header, okay, and semicolon. Header is basically a built-in function of PHP that allows us to redirect our header. So header is typically the header or the header of your browser, or in other words your URL. So basically this is sending an instruction to your header of your browser, or which is in other words the URL window. And in that URL window we are basically typing what we call location, 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 colon, for example, new page, I guess, let me just rename it .php. Okay, so what this basically is done, it's called URL redirection, that once your ID is correct, the variable session is already created, it will be saved in the session, your text ID. I haven't saved the password because we don't need to save the passwords in sessions. And when, for example, authentication true or whatever data you want to put here, then we redirect the user from this login page to another authenticated page. Okay, from this page we want to redirect the user to a new page. So for example, we create a new page and we just go inside file, save as, and in my login simple I will write new page.php, and we will write some code here. So once user login is correct, it will redirect me to this new page. If user data is incorrect, then what should happen? We can again redirect it, but for now we can echo a simple message. Please, in fact, let's do this. What we do, paragraph style is equals to single quotations, and then in this style we specify color, colon, red, red, and then semicolon, and then space, and then we close this p, and then here we can write invalid username or ID. Okay, sorry, so invalid username and password. So if the username is correct, this is what happens. If the username is not correct, just don't do anything. This is again inside a if block. This first if will evaluate if the user button was clicked or not. Okay, this is again we have done because we are using this in the same page. It might not necessary, we might send this to already a new different page. Okay, so for example, I can write a page check validation. I will show you in a moment how we do that. For now, we just validating within the same page. And next example, we will just change the action method here, and once we will submit that, once you click on submit, take me to the verify login page. So that verify login page will actually connect with database, read the records, match the records, validate. If it is true, send me to the new page. If it is false, send me back to my original index page. So there is a third middle page in between. We'll talk about it in a moment. Just hang up. So once we are done here, we save it. Once we come into the page, let's just use, for example, h1. Welcome to, then we use question mark, in fact, hang on, so first question mark PHP, and we start SESS session start, bracket close, and question mark, bracket close. So in PHP we have initiated the session. Now we come here, we come inside PHP, and session has already been started. So what we do is we echo the command, and the string can be welcome to or welcome. Just let's leave this here, and welcome we can leave, for example, in fact we can just say $_SESSION session, bracket start, bracket close, inverted quotations, and it is supposed to be ID, I think, only, and yes, here we go. Okay, now what we did within our HTML, we have written welcome from the HTML tag and then PHP tag. Okay, so this PHP tag closed here, then we have an HTML tag, and within the HTML inline PHP is written, then we can come here and close the HTML tag. So what this will do, it will just give us, print us the name and the session ID that we did. So now there is nothing else. Okay, simple session has been initiated, and it will just print me the name, the ID that I gave. The ID we have read from the session. So this ID was actually saved in this particular field. Okay, so we saved it one page. If it is validated, it will give us the output. If it is not, it will give us the message. Let's go and test it. Ensure to save the pages, go inside our HTML, and let's hit a refresh, continue. I think if I hit enter, user login. So for example, if I give ABCD, hit submit, invalid username and ID. Because remember, my username ID is hard coded to be Zeeshan and 123. So next time I'm come here, I just enter Zeeshan 1234, click submit, welcome Zeeshan. So a very simple way of validating your ID. So if I go back again, it says it's if you have submitting a form, you don't want to do that. So that's because of all that. So now we come here again. So for example, if I enter invalid numbers, click on submit, I get invalid username or ID message. Got it? But at the same time, if I give, for example, correct one and then click on submit, I get welcome Zeeshan. This is because we have done a simple login system. Okay, how this login system again works is that we come inside PHP, our main code. Within our main code, we have written a simple form. Within a form, it is just simple text field and password and submit button. When the submit button is clicked, it will reload my own page. Okay, because this every time it reloads, we start a session, we check a condition. If the button was clicked, if submit button is clicked, fantastic, execute these conditions. If it is not clicked, just come outside. So because if the submit button is clicked, the post method will have something called submit value. If this value is true, so that is why is set value is used to evaluate. Is there any value inside something called post submit? Okay, so post submit is give this submit. If that is the case, then this condition becomes true. If we haven't clicked submit, see there is no message here. So sorry, no message in this window. So hit a refresh, zip. Okay, so there is no error or nothing because this has not yet been executed. This condition didn't become true. It exit from here. If this becomes true, now read the data from post text ID. If it is Zeeshan and operator, double and basically an and operator in PHP, and the post text password is equal to 123. So this condition and this condition, until these two conditions becomes true, then execute this block. If it is false, just give me this message, echo invalid username or password. If this becomes true, load this page. Now here, this is reading from the same page. We can insert a third page in the middle. For example, we can say question mark and validate.php. Okay, so you can use validate.php. Save this code here, copy this entire code and yep, control C this, okay, or control X this code, and then create a new page, write your PHP code inside this question mark backslash, and the code comes here. Okay, and I will save this as within this page called validate.php. Okay, so now basically what happens is that once I come here, when I click submit, it will not go here. The session has already been started. It will just go to this page called validate. So it will load this validate.php. This page does nothing. It won't display any other message except displaying us the login information. Okay, so what it does, it evaluates if submit was clicked. Is because of the submit you came here, or somebody directly entered the URL. That's again another thing. So we need to evaluate. We need to be ensured that yes, somebody clicked on submit. That is why I am here. If that is the case, then we do. If somebody has entered the validate to your.php directly, then do not do anything. Okay, because then I don't want anything to happen. I don't want to evaluate or connect to database. Small check is there. But because we are using a center page, I might not use this submit at the moment. So some people don't tend to use it. Sometimes in forms, we recommend you do that to ensure that you are coming from a submit form, not directly from the validate or values. Okay. Once the submit is concerned, now we again use the same thing. Validate the condition. If the condition is true, use a URL redirection to redirect now to another new page. If this condition is false, control C, what happens now? I want you to redirect me to the old page. So what happens? I use echo bracket start bracket close, come back here and bing, 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 statement. Okay, again URL redirection. So copy and paste. This time I would again use index.html. Sorry, index.php, blah, 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 blah. Index, what happened? Did I do something wrong? Control Z, index.php. So this basically means that if something is wrong, you are supposed to do this thing. Now, what happens is that I can use, not echo, else, if, else, Control S, and echo would come here. I think this echo would not be representing now. Control Z, semicolon, and index.php. Okay, so now what happens that if I come back into my index page, if I click on submit, if the username password is correct, it will take me to my new page. If the username and password is incorrect, it will redirect me back to my index page. The middle page, validate, is basically responsible for validating our username and password. We use this middle page which does nothing other than the redirection. If it is okay, go to this page. If it is not okay, go to this page. However, this is where basically we will connect the database with. So this page is not technically visible to the user. User sees this page, clicks on submit. This page is loaded automatically at the server, validates a username, connects to the database, and does all the operations. If everything is working, go to this page. If it is not working, go to this page with the error message. Currently, we have not gone into details of error or other things. I hope you understand this page right there. So let me just click OK. Come into the simple page, press enter. I think this should be okay. So if I enter Zeeshan 1234, click on submit, we get Zeeshan back again. Okay. But if I go back into my page, come here, and if I enter the data incorrectly, for example, click on submit, I'm redirected to my own page with a new value. So if I enter something else, I'm redirected. Now again, there is no error, but we can just let up a message within our header file, or we can read whatever data we want with that thing. Okay. So that's a simple matter where we can process. For now, I hope you understand this thing. It's a very simple way of creating a simple login system, which will then be extended into future ways. So this is where basically login works. You ask the user to give you username and password. You click on submit. You create a validate page that validates your user data and then sends on new page. If it is not in the case, we basically do URL encoding. We send a message from using URL back to our index page, and then we have some information here to read it. Currently, we are not discussing URL encoding and URL data that much. That's why I'm not sending a message back here, but we can send a message back from here to my index page that we are coming from a validate and the user ID was not there, and we can use a condition to print a message. Okay, so hopefully this is clearable. We will, as I said, this is first, not trying to complex things too much. We will be doing more of these in future classes with databases and validation and sending messages through URL ourselves. Okay, hopefully you understand that. Don't leave your comments down below, and I will try to contact you and reply you on your YouTube. Thank you very much for watching.